الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد. عن زيد بن ثابت رضي الله عنه قال: سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: من كانت الدنيا همه فرق الله عليه أمره وجعل فقره بين عينيه ولم يأتيه من الدنيا إلا ما كتب له. ومن كانت الآخرة نيته جمع الله له أمره وجعل غناه في قلبه وأتته الدنيا وهي راغمة، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه ابن ماجه. Sayyidina Zayd bin Thabit radiyallahu anhu, he narrates, saying that I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Man kanat ad-dunya hammahu, whosoever makes this world his objective in life, his concern, farraq Allahu alayhi amrah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala scatters his affairs, faces worries, always anxious, hardships. وَجَعَلَ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts poverty in his eyes, or the fear of poverty between his eyes. وَلَمْ يَأْتِيهِ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَا كُتِبَ لَهُ, and he will not get anything from this world except what is destined for him, what is written for him. وَمَنْ كَانَتِ الْآخِرَةُ نِيَّتَهُ, and whosoever makes the hereafter his intention and his purpose in life, جَمَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ أَمْرَهُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will gather his affairs, will make his affairs very easy. وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put ghina in his heart, will put contentment, satisfaction, will enrich his heart. وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ, and the world will come to him and will come to him humiliated. This hadith is in Ibn Majah, and in this book, the book of Muntakhab Hadeeth, it is in the chapter of Ikhlas, in hadith number 14 of that chapter, Ikhlasun Niyya, which means sincerity of intention, in hadith number 14. A few points about this hadith. That Zayd bin Thabit radiyallahu anhu, he narrates saying that I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, and whenever we hear Rasulullah, we should say sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So Zayd bin Thabit radiyallahu anhu, he narrates saying that I heard Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, Man kanat ad-dunya hammahu, whosoever makes this world, this dunya, his objective, his worry. One of the points about making this dunya, making this world your objective, is that a person is always contemplating on how to accumulate the wealth of this world and how to accumulate the possessions of this world. And the person does not care for halal or haram. And the person also does not care that once they get the wealth that they will fulfill the rights of those that have rights on them, for example, their relatives and others. He does not have any plan like this. So there are many in this world that they've made this dunya, they've made this world their objective. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in various places in the Quran, He speaks about this aspect of dunya, of worldly life, particularly hubbul mal, the love of wealth. As insan, as human beings, we have a very intense love for wealth. وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا, and you love wealth, very extreme love for it. It's the nature of human beings. الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَهُ يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدًا, those that gather their wealth and they count their wealth and they think or believe that this wealth will be with them forever. So this is the love of insan. Amongst the many things that we as human beings we love is actual wealth, particularly if it used to be a time where there was real wealth, gold and silver. But mal itself, wealth, is something that is very, very beloved to a human being. In this dunya, in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us two options in relation to everything in our life. One option, or the first main and very good option, is that while living in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a set of rules, guidance, hidayah, that if you follow these set of rules, so the wealth that you will accumulate will be halal for you. Remember one thing, the accumulation of wealth is not prohibited. We should accumulate wealth. How we go about it will determine whether it is halal or it is haram. So we're given options in this world. How we earned this wealth. And these will be one of the major questions on the Day of Judgment. When a person will stand in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will be four major questions that will be asked. And one of the main major questions will be about how did you accumulate the wealth? Was it through halal means? Was it through means and avenues that you were allowed to use and utilize? They were permissible, they were halal for you. Or did you accumulate this wealth through haram and prohibited means? And there are many things in this world that we are allowed to get involved in and to make an honest living. But there are also many that take the wrong path. So one option is that we take the path of earning halal wealth, making sure that the wealth that we are earning, it is halal. It is permissible. It does not have anything haram or anything prohibited attached to it when we are earning it. This is also in relation to human effort, what we put our effort into in accumulating this wealth. So that is one option. The second option is that you take the wrong path. You take the option of what is haram and what is prohibited. You make wealth either through earning interest, usury, riba, which is clearly haram, or you earn wealth through selling that which is prohibited, selling or getting involved in things related to gambling or alcohol, or all of the other avenues that are clearly prohibited. So these are the options that we are given in this world. So for those who make the worldly life their main objective, so they will not care for what is halal and what is haram, they will just seek to get that wealth. Even if it is through haram means, even if it is through prohibited means. And one thing about haram wealth is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has taken the barakah or the blessings out of that wealth which is accumulated through haram, which is accumulated through the means of what is prohibited. And this is not just limited to us Muslims, this is for everyone. That wealth which is earned through haram means, earned through that which is prohibited, will not have any blessings in it. And rather it will become a means of stress and hardships and problems and worries. And because of this worry, the person will never be satisfied. That level of sakina and tranquility will never come in a person that he'll say, I have enough, I'm done. Rather, they'll always continue to seek more. It is like the example of salt water. And the nature of salt water is that when you drink salt water, in the hope of quenching your thirst, you end up making yourself more thirsty. And the salt can have very detrimental effect on your health and even kill a person if you have it in large doses like that. So sometimes we think that happiness or satisfaction is in having immense or massive bank accounts and immense wealth, even if that wealth comes from prohibited avenues. But the reality is that it is just like drinking salt water. When you drink it, you become more thirsty, and then you want more, and you drink more, you become even more thirsty. Your thirst never quenches. So you're in pursuit of getting more and more, and that pursuit never ends. So that is one aspect of hammahu, making this dunya your main objective, making this material aspect of this world your objective. The other objective of making dunya, when somebody makes this world their objective, is the fulfillment of shahawat, the fulfillment of desires. There's a list of very particular desires that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran that is related to this human being. And the beauty of fulfilling those desires, those shahawat. So a person makes this the objective of their life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the ayat of Surah Al-Imran, زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ. It has been beautified for mankind, the love of their desires. And what are those desires? زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ. It has been beautified for this human being, the love of their desires, to indulge and involve in their desires. And what are those? مِنَ النِّسَاء, from women, وَالْبَنِينَ, from children, وَالْقَنَاطِيرِ الْمُقَنْطَرَةِ مِنَ الذَّهَبِ وَالْفِضَّةِ, to have heaps and large amounts of gold and silver, which means bank balances. And it's amazing how dhahab and fidda are mentioned, gold and silver are mentioned as a love of desire. It's not, well, but what is amazing is that the word wealth is not mentioned, or mal, money. So beautified for this human being is the love of their desires, of women, of children, of having big heaps of gold and silver. الذهب والفضة والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث. And this is amazing also, the aspect of having a nice ride. Back then they used to have horses. Nowadays we have cars and vehicles who can have, basically again, going to luxury brand names, and who can show off. Back then used to have particular types of horses, and they had their own system, just like nowadays we have systems. People have a particular type of house, people have a particular type of vehicle, people have a particular type of watch, brand names. Also with lands, there's a kind of love for having and owning land, and in that land having animals, the farmlands, for those who are into that. And it's amazing how these particular things are mentioned. And there is a particular appetite that is developed for these things. These are the hubbu shahawat, the love of those desires. ذَلِكَ مَتَاعُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this is the mata' of this world. This is just the means and the material aspects of this worldly life. وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ حُسْنُ الْمَآبِ. And what was with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is much better. But this is also one aspect of the objective of making dunya your objective, is to fulfill this desire, to be involved in the hubbu shahawat, to be involved in the love of one's desires. In this time and age, the 21st century, we live in a time where the shahawat and the desires have been made very, very accessible to everyone. And again, even in this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us particular directions, allowing us for what is halal and also warning us against what is haram. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created inside every single human being this capacity of nafs, this capacity of desires, of shahawat. And the reality and nature of these shahawat and desires is that if you do not keep them under your control, if you do not try and control them, you do not try and control yourself, then these desires overpower a person. And when they overpower a person, a point comes where the desire gets out of control. Once it gets out of control, the appetite is never satisfied. This is, again, I'm using the term appetite because this is a linguistic term that we can understand related to desires. There's a very particular appetite for fulfilling those desires. If that appetite is kept in check, then a person will to some degree be satisfied. Satisfaction, he can find satisfaction. But if that appetite is not controlled, then a person will never ever become satisfied, will never become full. There's a major problem in this time and age with obesity. And if you go to those who are obese and who have this eating disorder, they always eat. They eat for enjoyment. The reality of eating for enjoyment is that it becomes a hobby and it just becomes enjoyment. And a person is never really full. He may eat and eat and eat. And the only thing that will stop him from eating is that the people around him will not be eating. Or there'll be a particular time that they'll realize that this is not the time for me to be eating. That's it. Otherwise, that appetite for eating never ends. They never feel full. And that is why you have this problem that is going on in the world. It's not particular to any country. Obviously, in the Western world, it's a bigger problem. But this appetite the person never feels full. But for those who have understood that there's a way to control this appetite, there's so many. They have all these hundreds of diets, and this is a very, very big business now. There's diets and losing weight and how to lose weight. There's only one major secret to controlling one's weight, and that is control what you eat and how much you eat. A lot of focus is put on what to eat, and not enough focus is put on how much to eat. There needs to be more focus put on how much, the quantity that you're putting inside. If that is controlled, the quantity, you can eat anything you want. Obviously, stick to what is halal. Obviously, stick to what is healthy. But control the amount that is going inside. If you're used to having 3 plates, cut it down to 2. Cut it down to 1. Bring it down. If you're eating 5-6 times a day, so much food, bring it down. And it's amazing how we have the sunnah. And the sunnah is very similar to that of fasting. You have the suhoor and you have iftar. You have the morning early meal and you have the night meal, and that's it. And even the sunnah of how much to eat. Eat 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, 1/3 for breath. And it's amazing how the term 1/3 is used. People ask, how do I know it's 1/3? If you cannot determine what is 1/3, then you have the problem of overeating, or the food has become a means of enjoyment for you. For those who have controlled their eating and they have controlled their weight, 1/3 is when you start to enjoy the food. You cannot eat anymore. A point comes where you cannot eat anymore. Also, enjoyment starts, which means you're just eating, but you don't really need to eat it. You can't really eat more than this. And you will feel when you are full, you will not be able to breathe. So this is the term appetite. And the aspect of appetite is it's not limited to food and drink. There's also the appetite for desires. And these shahawat, if they're not controlled, then a person makes it the objective of their life that the whole day they're thinking about when they can get a chance to go back and indulge in their desires. And it is one of the most destructive aspects of the 21st century, And one of the most destructive aspects of the mass use of technology, that people will not use the technology for other things, but they will particularly use it for entertainment. They will use it to fulfill their appetites and indulge in their desires. It's amazing how the Quran has given us such a beautiful formula. Our beautiful deen of Islam has given us such a beautiful formula that for the believing men, lower your gaze and and keep your chastity in check. Control your desires. Build your haya and your modesty. And also for the believing women, can lower your gaze, protect your chastity, keep your haya and your modesty in check. So we're told to control our gaze. This gaze is one of the first things. Once we gaze at something, the desire is triggered. As also one of the desires and appetites, they need a trigger. We human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with certain triggers. The trigger for the food is the smell. The trigger for food is smell. If you smell food, you'll start to become hungry. This is human nature. Especially if it is the smell of the food is something that you like. Even if you are full, you start to feel hungry. The sense of smell. And for when it comes to the other desires, particularly looking at the opposite gender, and also looking at wealth and involving and looking at these things, starts with the gaze. When you put your gaze towards that which is haram, that will have a very, very detrimental effect on a human being's desires, and even the desires will control a person. That is why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very clearly, don't even go near zina. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't even go near fornication. Because by looking at something that you should not be looking at, this will take you in that direction. You will not be able to control yourself. The same as looking at the wealth of others, and particularly those in this community who are weak and they're not able to take care of themselves, or they're weak and anyone can take their wealth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also instructs us in the Quran, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ. Don't go near the wealth of the orphan. If there's an orphan under your care and they have wealth, and now you want to exploit that wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very clearly, don't even go near their wealth. Because if you exploit it, it's a major sin on you. So don't even go near that. Don't start thinking and coming up with ideas. And we should also be very, very careful by looking at the material things of other people. If we're looking at the material things of people, and then we start to develop this wish that we also had that or more than that. And that has a very detrimental effect. It makes a person ungrateful for the favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them and bestowed upon them. And it also builds within a person jealousy sometimes. And it can become a means of many, many other problems. So we should keep our gaze on the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us. And we should be very, very grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these favors and bounties. Otherwise, if we're gazing and looking at the material things of this world and the things that other people have, this will become very, very dangerous for us. And that is also a particular ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam very, very clearly that don't turn your gaze towards those things which the kuffar and the disbelievers have. That this is, we have only given them, don't look at the zahrat al-hayat al-dunya. Don't look at the beautiful things of this world, that the material things that the disbelievers have. Very, very clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and again indirectly in the Quran, this is also an indirect instruction for us also, that be very, very careful what you wish and what you desire to have, and what you are checking and looking at the material things of other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes this point also very, very clear. So this is part of those who make this world their objective. Man kanat ad-dunya hammahu. Whosoever makes this worldly life their objective. These are just some of the means or some of the points related to making this world our objective. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.